are nothing new. They have shaped this coastline for tens of thousands of years, long before walls, roads or towns were even built. So if there's nothing new about the storms, why are they suddenly causing bigger problems? This exact combination of tide, waves and rain used to be really rare, but now it's becoming normal. Why is this happening? What's changed? Is it the storms or something bigger?
The coastline has certainly never stood still. Over Earth's history, climates have warmed and cooled, oceans have expanded and shrunk, and the shorelines have shifted with them. During some of the warmest periods on Earth, like the late Cretaceous, global sea levels were likely around 200 metres higher than they are today. To give you an idea of how that would look, even up here on these cliffs, I would still be underwater. And then, around 20,000 years ago during the last ice age, sea levels were likely around 120 metres lower than they are today. In fact, so much water was locked up in ice that Britain wasn't even an island. But here's the important part. For the last few thousand years, the entire time that humans have been building ports and cities and towns here at the coast, sea levels have been remarkably stable. But now, that stability is over. Today, sea levels are at their highest point of any point in the last 125,000 years. And just like in the past, rising seas are linked to rising temperatures. But this time, the warming isn't natural. Over the last 150 years, human activities, especially burning fossil fuels like coal, oil and gas, have released vast amounts of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Those gases trap heat, the planet warms, ice melts and the oceans expand. Globally, sea levels have risen by around 24 centimetres in the last 150 years. Now that might not sound like much, but it's happening roughly 10 times faster than at any point in the previous 2,000 years. And that rate has doubled since 1990.
So here in Cornwall, we've recorded around 25 centimetres of sea level rise over the last century. And for much of the 20th century, the rate of rise was relatively steady. But according to our data over the last 30 years, that rate has accelerated.
And here's the tough part. The oceans respond slowly. Scientists call it lag.
Even if we stopped emitting greenhouse gases today, sea levels would keep rising. Heat takes time to move through the oceans. Ice sheets take time to melt. The system has momentum.
Scientists estimate that around 1 metre of additional sea level rise is already effectively locked in, even under lower emission scenarios.
Think of it like a flywheel. Once the ocean starts warming, it just keeps going. You can't just switch it off overnight.
So the storms haven't changed, but the baseline has.
So how is this affecting things here in Bude? Well, Bude sits on the north coast of Cornwall facing west, directly out into the Atlantic Ocean. We regularly get long period swell here, waves that have travelled thousands of miles of open ocean before arriving at our coastline. But why does that matter? Well, the swell period is simply the time between the waves. The longer the period, the longer the waves have travelled to get here and the more energy they have built up. That's why places like Bude are great for surfing. But that energy doesn't just disappear when it reaches the shoreline, it has to go somewhere. It pushes further up the beach, moving sand and rocks. And in Bude, it can even move water up the river. You may have even seen people surfing up our local river. It doesn't happen often, but those high energy waves that get the surfers excited also bring flood risk to Bude town centre. And then we have the tides. Every beach has a tidal range, which is the vertical difference between the high tide and the low tide. In some parts of the world, it's barely noticeable. For example, in the Mediterranean, it's only half a metre, whereas other parts, just like the Bristol Channel up the coast, are massive differences of 15 metres. Here in Bude, we've got a tidal range of about 7 metres on average, and it goes up to 9 metres on a spring tide. And that's actually pretty big for the UK.
Tides are driven mainly by the moon's gravitational pull, but the sun plays a part too. Spring tides happen when the sun and the moon line up, leading to a stronger gravitational pull, lifting the ocean even higher than normal.
During a storm, low atmospheric pressure and an onshore wind cause the wave to reach even higher up the beach than normal. We call this a surge. So now imagine stacking all of that together. Long period swell, a big spring tide, and extra surge. That's when the ocean is reaching much, much further up the beach than normal. Normally, waves lose their energy as they move into shallower water. The seabed forces them to slow down and break. But when sea levels rise, even by 50 centimetres, that shallow buffer shrinks. In deeper water, waves won't break where they used to. They'll break closer to shore and with more energy.
On top of this, when higher sea levels meet rivers, such as the Neat, something else happens. The river can't drain. If the sea level outside is higher than the river level inside, the water has nowhere to go. And climate change is bringing heavier rainfall, which means that rivers are already running high. Just like a bath with the plug still in, if the river can't drain, it will spill out over the sides, causing more regular coastal flooding.
And all of this leads to increased exposure to erosion. Now, erosion is nothing new. The coastline has always moved. But it's only relatively recently that we've built our homes, roads and businesses right here at the water's edge. Historically, Stratton was the coastal town. Bude came much later, right on the coast. What's happening here in Bude is happening all over the world. Sea levels are higher. Waves are bringing more energy. That energy is moving further up the beaches. Rivers are struggling to drain. And all of that puts coastal towns like Bude in a really vulnerable position.
So even without more storms, even without bigger storms, the same storms now pose a bigger threat than they used to. The storms haven't changed. The sea level has risen, and that changes everything.